Welcome, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. To my right here is my buddy Shadow the Night Owl. He is my right-hand man and the spirit animal of the channel. And I see Phil Bradley in the chat here already. Welcome, sir. For those who don't know, I'll be including my Shopify link to the Revenge of the Black Sheep and Black Sheep Nation shirts. So check that out too. It'll be in the description of these videos. It's also in the YouTube shopping section on my channel as well. Vake, how are you? And today we'll be going over a couple things Nancy Guthrie related. First, Sheriff Nanos actually gave an update on the case. He released a new statement, so we're going to go over that first. There's also a theory that a leading forensic scientist has about the case, who she thinks did it. We'll go over that too. Bethany and Sikorsky, how are you? I'm doing well. Been a little tired today for whatever reason, but I'm alive and well. How are you all? D, how are you? On the way in here, of course, remember to like the video because likes are free. Subscribe to the channel. And as always, tell a friend or five about the flock of black sheep here. And let's see what Sheriff Nanos has to say for himself. Amidst all the controversy of the recall and everything else that's going on, let's see what he has to say. Nanny Goat? What's shaking, Nanny Goat? Ruby, how are you? So, let's go over this here. Nancy Guthrie update. Sheriff's Department releases new statement. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 4 months, and a Pima County rep has shared a new statement. This is a rep for Sheriff Nanos. The investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the mother of NBC's Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, has just hit a new milestone. Unfortunately, it's a sad one. On Monday, June 1st, the Guthrie case reached the 4-month milestone, but authorities say it isn't time to lose hope just yet. Nancy Guthrie update today. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nano says they're still focused on the case. Let's see. Even though there hasn't been much new information to emerge from the Guthrie case as of late, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nano says things are happening behind the scenes. It moves at a snail's pace, I guess, for some, Nanos told 13 News in an exclusive interview. But for my investigative team and for me, we look at this as, no, this is doing exactly what we need it to do. I guess it'd be easier for all of us to believe that if there was some hope that you can give us. But since there really isn't anything, we're just taking your word for it. Shadow's skeptical. Sheriff Nanos also told 13 News that DNA testing isn't instant and said that the public needs to be patient. While it's certainly the case that DNA testing takes time, it's also understandable that the public is restless, especially after the 4-month mark. At this point, it may seem hopeless, but a breakthrough could be just a phone call or text message away. Just think of all the time cases that have gone unsolved for years, even decades, finally get solved thanks to a random breakthrough, such as a tip or DNA sample surfacing. Authorities are still asking the public to get in touch with any tips. No tip is too small. I'm kind of surprised they're saying that because after I read the Matt Murphy book, The Book of Murder, he had mentioned how some tips can actually lead you on a wild goose chase. Something to be mindful of. Even if something seems insignificant to you, it may be the key that opens up this case. Those with information on Nancy Guthrie's disappearance are being asked to contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-359-4900. The public may also contact the FBI directly at 1-800-CALL-FBI. Sheriff Nanos has stated that his office, in addition to the FBI, is still getting public tips. While no new information has surfaced on the investigation, Fox News did speak with longtime medicological death investigator Barbera Butcher aptly named maybe, at CrimeCon Las Vegas on Monday, June 1st, for her expert opinion on the matter. She said that she believes Nancy Guthrie may have been targeted by a worker who knew the family. We're going to go into that article next. Savannah Guthrie returned to the Today Show on April 6th and has been back in her co host chair ever since, except for a few times that she left the set early. It shows her brave nature that she's back on the show when her heart is obviously elsewhere. This is an article by Ann Erickson, and it's written today, June 1st, 2026. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go deeper into the article of the forensic scientist Barbara Butcher. Welcome everyone who's wandered into the chat here. Auntie, Risk. Remove. All right. So this is the article about how they think a local worker is who took Nancy. And again, not impossible, but it's certainly not my leading theory, because if a local worker took Nancy for money, they just blundered this so badly. And I would have thought they would take something from the home. If your goal was money, why not take something from the home? I don't know. I don't like it. But let's see what the article says. This is a Fox 10 Phoenix article by Michael Ruiz, published today, June 1st, 2026. Nancy Guthrie likely targeted by local worker who assumed family was wealthy, says veteran investigator. What do you think, chat? Do you think that's accurate? Do you think a local worker took Nancy? Press 1 if you think so. Press 2 if you're not so sure. So 1, yes, local worker. 2, no, someone else. A leading forensic A leading forensic scientist who spent decades with one of the country's largest medical examiner's offices told Fox News Digital over the weekend that she believes Nancy Guthrie may have been targeted by a local worker who assumed the victim's family had money. She says, I find it flabbergasting that anyone would take a woman her age, but what I think is probably the case is that someone in the area, maybe a handyman, maybe a service person, had found out that Mrs. Guthrie was the mother of Savannah Guthrie and said, oh, she must be rich, Barbara Butcher said Saturday, speaking on the sidelines of CrimeCon Las Vegas. So this person is not well, end quote. Butcher, a longtime medicological death investigator and the host of Oxygen's The Death Investigator, also said the lack of a credible ransom demand raises concerns that Guthrie may have died shortly after the alleged abduction due to shock or an underlying medical condition, leading the suspect to hide evidence and vanish before the case could be resolved. Now, I do think that is certainly possible that she died shortly thereafter. Where I would differ is I don't think it was because of a ransom or an attempted or hopeful ransom. My second thought, she says, was that after time, when there was no valid ransom demand or any information forthcoming, that it's probably likely that Mrs. Guthrie died of shock, fright, heart disease, whatever it was, very soon after being taken from her home, she added. That very well could be. And that's just horrifying to me. And so now this kidnapper had nothing and probably, unfortunately, took her body into the desert and buried her there. That could very well be the case. Guthrie is believed to have been taken from her home in Tucson, Arizona in the early hours of February 1st. She is the 84-year-old mother of Today co-host Savannah Guthrie, whose family offered to meet ransom demands sent to TMZ in February. Despite that, Guthrie's whereabouts remain unknown. The family is urging anyone with information to dial 1-800-CALL-FBI. There is a combined reward of more than $1.2 million for information that breaks the case. Wow. So, folks, what do you think about that? What do you think? Do you think a local worker did it? Hello there, Miss Kim. How are you? Let's see here. Hello there, Danielle. Mayor and Tim, hello. No, Sheriff Nanos just gave an update that people need to be patient. DNA takes time. Not what people want to hear, but he says if anyone has tips, he's more than happy to hear them. And then Barbera Butcher from CrimeCon says she's a forensic scientist. She thinks that a local worker did it. I don't know about that. I still think it's somehow related to someone in the family that wanted to punish Savannah, is what my guess would be. But again, we really don't know. Yeah, better than nothing, I guess, Mayor. Better than nothing. So now we're going to see what Brian Etten has to say. He interviewed someone who knows all about lie detector tests. Polygraphs, we should say.
Evidence and Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. Really appreciate you guys for all your support and for subscribing. I'm actually in the airport right now on my way to my next story. I was in Vegas for the weekend. Sorry, my voice is going a little bit. But in this episode, I am getting into the latest on the Nancy Guthrie investigation. A few interesting developments here. Several of you have reached out to me. There's some articles floating around about the possibility of investigators having a name that they may be looking into. And I just wanted to clear that up. I was talking to my sources who are close to the investigation who say that that is not true. Unfortunately, obviously, I wish it was true, but from what I'm hearing, that is not true. They are still going through a ton of tips. There's a lot of tips that they haven't gotten to yet. So I still have hope that something's going to pan out. But in terms of some of this information going around that there is a name that they're looking into, I'm told that that is not true. In this episode, though, I'm having an in-depth conversation with John Bueller. He was the detective who investigated the Scott Peterson case. Super smart guy, awesome guy, has a ton of insight into the Nancy Guthrie case, especially when it comes to what is happening right now with the investigation and also polygraphs, which I found to be really interesting because I reported that they did use polygraphs to clear people in the Nancy Guthrie investigation. And he explains not only how that works, but there's some components to the way they use polygraphs that I didn't fully understand. So I'm going to get into it, that conversation in this episode of Brian Ensign Investigates. Thank you, John, for talking with me. Really
always good to be with you.
I wanted to ask you, and a lot of people are talking about this because there's so many tips that have come in with the Nancy Guthrie case.
Right.
And I'm told by sources that, they're still going through tips even that came in a month ago, just because there's so many, you know, that are going into like the FBI center or to the local sheriff's office. Do you think within those thousands of tips, there is a name or something that they just haven't seen yet?
So what I hope Brian asks in this is, why would they clear the family just from these polygraph tests? What went into that thinking, especially considering only the DA should be clearing people? So let's see if Brian Etten asked that question in this video.
That could be the answer.
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible, and Brian, it's possible for several different reasons. You may remember the 4 women that were killed in Yosemite back in 1999 by a serial killer named Carrie Stainer, and there was he sent a hand-drawn map to the command post about where he left one of the victims, and it was in a stack of mail. We missed it for several days, just because there were so many things coming in. And when tips come in on a case like Nancy Guthrie's, they're prioritized as best they can, but you still don't know for sure if they're prioritized correctly. And so there might be something in there that we're waiting on to break it wide open.
Do you still have hope?
Well, in my life experience, I don't have a lot of hope that she survived the abduction. That's my, I pretty much maintained that from the beginning. You don't want to say much about that in the beginning if you're called upon, because the family still is struggling, and they're struggling even at this moment. I think there's a fairly good possibility they will solve this. It just is going to take the right thing to break it open. There were so many cases over the years that our detectives, myself, and others handled that we looked at them when we got to the crime scene, and we just looked, we have nothing to work with here. This is never going to be solved. But then something came in, and you never know when it's going to come in. And sometimes it takes a while. We had a stranger, a random murder that went 11 years unsolved. And it was only because the one person that could give us the information was afraid to come forward. And it took 11 years for him to get over that fear.
But how is it possible that, like, there's that image from the front doorbell camera of Nancy Guthrie's house? When that came out, I thought it's only a matter of days now. I mean, someone's going to recognize the eyebrows or the mouth or the gait. How is it possible that, you know, months later now, and even with DNA evidence and everybody's so interested, and the FBI so invested, that's still nothing?
A fair question by Brian. Let's see what he says here.
Well, there's a couple of possibilities that you don't like to talk about them, but they're very real, because you covered it, much more than I did when I was the short period of time I was down there. There is a bit of friction between the agency, the sheriff's office, and the FBI, and it's exaggerated a little bit in entertainment and movies and things like that, but there's always a little bit of a friendly rivalry. I knew many wonderful FBI agents, great interviewers, great investigators.
So I was so happy when I told you guys about ZocDoc, today's video sponsor, a few weeks ago, and I got
that the sheriff had with the FBI from something that happened a few years earlier, and I don't know if that plays into this. Like we were listening to yesterday, everybody, for the most part, down here at CrimeCon is under the belief that any DNA evidence should have immediately gone to the FBI and not to some private lab. Not that they can't do good work, but if you keep...
And as we've heard, there's actually debate on this. Where should that DNA have gone? People like C.C. Moore, the genetic genealogist, the DNA expert, she had no problems with it going to a private lab. But depending on who you talk to, you're going to get a different answer.
It at one particular place, and they can make things happen a little quicker, and maybe if they send it to Quantico, they would have better results, quicker results, and maybe be able to process it in a different way than the private lab. I don't know enough about the lab that it went to be able to make that call, but it seems to me if you can keep things simple, it works out better when you go to trial. So that would be something that I would...
You think that may have slowed things down?
I think there's a possibility of that. I'd heard while I was down there that the sheriff transferred some of his more experienced violent crime investigators out of the unit for some issue. And I've experienced things like that before in the career and seen it. Police administrators oftentimes are really wonderful, and they're really good. And I've worked for some really good ones. And then sometimes you work for one that is a good test taker, but because he's at the top of the food chain, he's the chief, he is under this belief that he knows everything. I think what they call it, the Dunning-Kruger effect. And if you've never worked murders for a while, it really takes a while to get fairly accomplished at it. And especially if you're not being trained by somebody who's really good. If you just roll in there and you think you can do it off of a textbook in a 40-hour class, I just remember the first murder I went to when I got transferred into that unit, and I'd been working crime scenes for 4 years, and I got there and I didn't know what to do. And the guy I was with, he just very kind. He said, "Oh, why don't we do this first?" And after a while, you just learn the steps, and then it becomes autopilot.
Are you surprised, though, that with the image and then with the reward over $1 million, that you'd think there'd be a tip that would come in? Someone would want that money.
Gosh, I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah.
$1 million too. A guy who's going to do something like that, if there's two people involved in it, I can't believe that $1,200,000 and change is not going to fracture that loyalty. That's some pretty good cash. Drug users that are sourcing an illegal drug habit are going to turn on somebody for $50. And so when you have this giant reward sitting out there, to think that somebody isn't coming forward, and I've heard the stories, and they sound a little bit conspiratorial, but they're entertaining nonetheless about, well, there were two guys and he probably killed his partner and buried him in the desert next day. And, Nancy, things like that. I mean, you hear these things, I'm kind of a fact guy.
Yeah.
But it's fun to kind of think about things like that. I'm just right there with you. I think it's a stretch to think that one wouldn't turn on the other for that amount of money.
So do you?
I don't know if it's a stretch. I think it can be risking your life to turn on the other person for that amount of money. Because especially if they know people in the underworld, I mean, you snitch, there's a target on your back. So it kind of doesn't surprise me that someone wouldn't turn their buddy in, or their partner, whatever, their wife, girlfriend, or whatever. It's a dangerous thing to do.
Think there's more than one person involved?
I've never thought there were more than one person from the beginning.
You think it's one person?
I just kind of thought it was from the beginning. Yeah, I haven't seen anything that suggests different to me.
While you're here, folks, please remember to like the video, because likes are free. Spank that like button. Leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Tell 5 friends about the flock of black sheep here. Also, super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting memberships, great ways to support the channel. Helps me pay for Shadow the Night Owl here, soy-free Hootie Snacks. We put leftovers in the Hootie Snack 500. And thank you very much for everyone who's been supporting the channel so far. And if you're lurking, say hello to the flock of black sheep here.
I just, there's, and it doesn't mean there couldn't be, but because of that reward thing, that really sticks with me. That's a pretty expensive loyalty to have for somebody else. People that have independent wealth are not doing crimes like this. It's kind of like things we talked about with the burglars from the Peterson case. Most of the boaters that I know are not burglars, and most of the burglars I know don't have boats. So to think that they were going to take, Lacey up in the bay and drop her off a boat it's kind of a stretch. So kind of look at it that way.
I'm just thinking, could one person pull it off?
Yeah, I think they could.
How would that?
Not impossible for one, but I certainly think there was more than one. Again, I think most people here think there was more than one as well. Again, 150 pounds of dead weight. Even an old woman, that's not the easiest thing to maneuver around, by the way. Not impossible, but it's heavier than you would think.
Go down.
Well,
and again, I know we don't know, but
yeah,
just what's in your mind?
Well,
since you were out there and saw the house.
I compare it with Cary Stayner, the serial killer.
Okay.
He went into the room at the Cedar Lodge and he abducted and killed 3 women. He separated the 2 young teens in the bathroom. He took the mother out to the trunk. Then he brought another one of the teens out to the trunk. And then the third he brought out all separate, put her in the front seat, and then he left. Now, this is based on a confession, but his confession was weaved with so many crime-specific facts that really told us that he knew what he was doing, because these are things that were not let out of the investigation. And there were even some people that said there's no way he could have done it. But the way he described it, by using the gun as an intimidation tool, as a threat to separate them. And people who are not versed in violent crime, people here at CrimeCon would probably see through that, but people who live a life that isn't touched by that are just going to go along with the program hoping that they're going to survive it, when that's probably not a good way to go.
But I'm just thinking, how you've seen the house.
Yeah.
If it's one person, and I sort of think they probably went in through the back door, although we don't know for sure. They'd be able to get her out alone, you think, into a car? Or how do you?
It's very easily. There was one person in the back, one person in the front, the person on the Nest cam. That's very. Or there could have been a getaway driver. But again, the more people there were, the more likely they could have left DNA. So that's one of the only arguments for there being fewer people is, well, you mean to tell me they all didn't leave DNA? None of them did? I don't know.
You think that would all
I
go
think
down?
one could get her out alone. If with that gun, he had that ridiculous sportsman holster in front. I don't know any gun people that carry a gun like that in that position. I don't know if it was a display thing for intimidation when he was trying to get cooperation. There has to be something that he knew about Nancy Guthrie before the abduction. I don't see anything that suggests it's random. There's nothing that convinces me that he was just driving through the neighborhood that time of night and, oh, let's go to this house, because there's nothing remarkable about it. You think all the time that you spent there.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm referring to on that. So if whatever ruse he used to get her to come to the door and then to gain compliance, because she lived a normal life that was generally untouched with this kind of thing, I think he could easily coerce her into cooperating. The reason I'm fearful she didn't survive the abduction is kind of twofold. Number one, no instantaneous demand for a reward with indication that she's fine and that they'll release her. That's a pretty big stretch there to think that she survived it. But then the blood. Blood's pretty remarkable. You think if you get a shaving cut, I mean, how many blood drops do you have on the floor when you get a shaving cut? Well, probably none. If you cut yourself when you're cutting chicken on the cutting board in the kitchen, you cut your finger. Well, you hold.
See that foliage, all that green stuff in the blood there? And again, according to that 857 Tucson video, the detectives trampled that front step there, which I can't think that was a good thing at all. I mean, what Maureen would say is you're supposed to be walking around so to not contaminate the scene. But it didn't look like, according to that video, that's what they were doing.
Put a paper towel on it. Are you dripping blood? No, you're not. But the amount of blood that was present there in the front of the house suggests to me a wound that was bleeding a lot. Probably not arterial, but bleeding a lot. And with poor health and age, on a pacemaker, in fear, and him trying.
And again, I think she was probably punched or struck with something and then falls to her knees and coughs. I don't think she was dead inside the house. I think they struck her as she walks out the front door, and that's what you see there. Again, some people think it was staged. I don't necessarily think that. I think she was actually struck on the front step there.
To get her to comply, that's why I just don't think she survived it.
Do you think it wasn't, like, what do you think about the motive was? I mean, again, just your gut. We don't know. I mean, do you think it was a ransom?
Money is one of the first things. I mean, other than the shirts they're selling down here, it's always the husband,
yeah,
which are fantastic. But when
it's always the husband.
In this case, there's nothing to indicate to me anything other than money. I think it's financially based.
Money? I don't know about. I mean, if it was for money, that was the worst attempt to get money I've ever seen in my life. And in terms of proportionality for how much you can get in trouble for trying to get money this way, it is one of the most absurd and ridiculous ways to get money, considering what the punishment could have been. If you're just looking for money, there's other elderly scams to do besides a kidnapping that turns into a murder. I mean, Shadow thinks that's just absurd. Of all the things to do, this is what you're going to do for money? I'm just having a hard time buying it.
But I wouldn't be surprised if something else came out. And then we're also at a disadvantage that they don't let a lot of information out, which is good for the integrity of the case and for prosecution, but it does make it a little bit more difficult to kind of figure out what happened. I think it's cash. She's a victim that really is at low risk. She's, no gambling debts. She probably wasn't down here in Vegas every week. Didn't owe money. There's nobody could say anything bad about her.
Yeah.
So why her? There's got to be some reason that somebody was going after her. Notoriety with Savannah, possibly. Maybe a family member had an outlier, somebody that knows one of the family members that knew that there was a certain amount of wealth there, and maybe Savannah would pony up the money or something like that. And now you got this big reward. So that to me seems more likely. Kidnappings, are pretty rare. Child abductions, not so much, but an actual kidnap for ransom in the United States, they don't happen that often. So cops and the FBI don't get an enormous amount of practice working those things.
And that part's true. Ultimately, they are pretty rare, kidnappings for ransom, but they can happen. Now, kids being quote unquote kidnapped, a lot of time is the other parent. And that's what they're going to label it, though, as like an abduction. but it's really the other parent. But stranger abductions, much less common. Much less common. But they happen too, but they're just not as common.
You work the ones you do, and you document what you have to refer to that for experience. But as far as something like a strong arm robbery in a parking lot of Walmart, we get a lot of practice working those. But something like this, we don't.
So if she passed away during the being taken,
right?
Why not return her remains, her body, and get the money if you're that guy?
Because you return her, you have to be very, very, very sure there's no DNA evidence or any evidence that would help you get caught. So why would you do that? And again, I don't think it was for money anyway. So why the hell would you even tempt fate? I think it was a hit. And that's what I've been saying for a while. I haven't seen anything to make me change my mind. This money motive thing just doesn't really make sense to me.
Too risky, too much of a chance you're going to get caught. That's why I think the guy who did this, not very experienced in it, didn't really know what they were doing, and that leads to her not surviving the abduction. Because if it was somebody who knew what they were doing, not that there's a junior college you could go to learn these things,
right?
But if there was somebody who knew what he was doing, I like to think that she would have survived it, and they would have been able to do this. And it doesn't mean that she didn't. I mean, she could have survived it. She could be there. They maybe bring it in, takeout or something like that on a routine basis. But the pacemaker going offline fairly quickly frightens me when it comes to what happened to her.
Yeah, and you say inexperienced. In many ways, it seems like someone inexperienced, but at the same time, it's like they've been able to evade capture.
Well, we always made a joke.
Just luck.
We always joked we only caught the stupid ones.
Yeah.
So he, with this guy, the reason I think he was inexperienced is the gun.
I haven't heard that joke before. Have you? We only catch the stupid ones. Interesting admission.
I focus on that a couple of times because no professional weapons handler is going to carry a gun in a sportsman's holster in the front like that. It's just not. It's in the way. You don't do that. Concealed in an inside the waistband in an appendix position. Yeah, I get that. But this is something different. And then not knowing that there's a Nest or a Ring camera there, and then almost like surprised by it, and I have to go grab some foliage from outside to try and block it. That suggests poor planning on my part. That wasn't thought of beforehand. I mean, how many people? There's probably less people that don't have those things than people who do nowadays.
Yeah, I always just, I still struggle with the motive and whether the person knew about Savannah. Was it a Savannah obsessed person, or you think that's a possibility? You think it's just about money?
I can almost guarantee you a body makes it more likely you get caught. Now, it's not impossible to get prosecuted. You can still get prosecuted without the body. But no body, not going to make it easier to get caught.
Well, it could be. There's so many wackos out there, and maybe somebody who had some issue with Savannah. Maybe Savannah said something innocently enough when she was doing her commentary on her television show. Maybe somebody's obsessed with her. Can't put that past some of these people that are out there roaming around. Evil is amongst us. It's hard to identify because evil oftentimes comes in an attractive package. Peterson, Gary Stainer, guys like that. That gal that just got convicted here. You never know. They don't all look like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. He's pounding through the door. That's not really what in real life they always look like.
It was always my sense, and I don't know why, but that it was someone maybe from the area. Just because that random house, if you were, Savannah Guthrie has money, but you could find a richer person if you were just going to do this anywhere in the country. You know what I mean? Right. Maybe someone local who knew that was Savannah's mom. I don't know. That's kind of what I've thought.
I think that's entirely plausible.
Yeah.
Because you remember being up there and even driving up there, it's confusing.
Yeah.
Because the distance between the intersections is so short, and it's hilly, and there's no rhyme or reason to the streets. like in some cities where, streets are east-west, avenues are north-south, alphabetical from east to west, things like that. This has no rhyme or reason to these streets. And for her house, I mean, it's a nice place, like a lot of them are down there, but there's nothing that signals that you want to go to this house in particular. And unless you have specific information about the victim, why would you run the risk going to a house like that in the middle of the night? To me, it suggests he has to know that she's there alone.
Yeah.
That there's nobody there.
And I think that's part of the reason why they went more than once to the house, right? There's that other date, January 11th, where they think that other footage is from that day. So I think they scoped it out, and they knew that no one else was going to be there. I do think that happened.
People have guns, and, especially out in the desert.
What would you be doing now? I mean, 3 months, almost 4 months later, you're one of the detectives. Like, what do you think they're doing?
Well, I'm pretty convinced they're working hard trying to figure this out. They may have some obstacles they have to overcome with maybe a lack of cooperation with the sheriff. I don't know what exactly is going on with that. I've seen really great heads of agencies that appoint a public information officer, and they stay out of the limelight of a major case, and they leave it to the people that work it and that. And generally the results are better that way than if the agency head is there getting his, time with the TV, as I sit here getting time with you, but I'm not an agency head. But if I was working this thing, and it's in no particular order of importance because these things all have to be done, one of the things I really haven't heard anybody talk about this is when they mentioned the family was cleared. Well, I would never say I cleared anybody until I caught the right guy and the handcuffs went on and I had overwhelming proof, because everybody's a suspect until
very correct by him to say that. I'm glad he did.
They're not. And so when you start this thing, well, you're going to have to start with the family members. And I'm a big fan of the polygraph. Not because you can use it in court, because you can't, unless the defense and the prosecution both agree to it. Reaction to the request for a polygraph is a signal on the cooperation level. So I'm a big fan of that. And then the right polygraph operator, if he's skilled with understanding the machine and he's a good interviewer, can oftentimes turn a simple polygraph into an admission that he rolls into a confession. And so I would want to do polygraphs just immediately to clear people. In addition to that, I want to see the will. I want to see when it was last revised, who was added, who was deleted. That would be of importance to me because that could suggest monetary motive. The cars, most of the newer cars have a tracking capability in them that I don't think you can turn it off from the high-tech people that I talk to. I got a friend who's pretty good at that. And car tracking would be something I would look into. I would get somebody who really knows what they're doing on that, because you would want to try and see any cars that were coming into that area that particular night, what their destination was.
Of course, and this is one of the things that you would have thought they would have been able to do somehow, some way, between all of the Nest cams, porch cams, like none. I mean, that's one of the big ways they caught Michael McKee in the double homicide there with Spencer and Monique Tepe. They saw the car. Oh, this car was here right before and left right after. Oh, what do you know? But in this case, you would think there's not much to go on there because it's not a busy road. So any car that you see could be affiliated with the case. Now, we did see that one video footage from down the road. That turns out that car had nothing to do with it. But you would have thought they'd be able to get something on the vehicle. And, maybe they did. Maybe they did, and they just didn't tell us yet. Maybe they did find a way to get something, but it would certainly be helpful to get some sort of information on the vehicle they used to drive her away, because that seems pretty clear to me. They certainly did drive her away in a vehicle, but what kind of vehicle? It would help.
Was, where they were going, and see what you can find on that. In addition to that, if somebody ever plugged her address into a Google search for a Google Maps or whatever, if they did a reverse keyword search on that, because those records are maintained for a period of time, to see any random person that would have typed in her address, that had a reason to do it. And then you contact that person and find, well, why did you?
Hey, and that would be pretty interesting too. Anyone you could find out who typed in her address and then look at it from there. Yeah, I like it.
Put that address in there. And then I was driving for Amazon. I do that all the time. I drop off packages. And so you can eliminate people from suspicion that way as easy as you can focus on somebody. I'm sure they already did it, but any tradespeople that maybe were doing plumbing repair or electrical repair, anybody who was delivering furniture, anything that came up where somebody could see her as a source of ransom because of a connection with Savannah and Savannah's notoriety. I would be looking at people like that. Parolees. A lot of times people come out of state prison and they don't reoffend, but a lot of times they do. And so any releases in and around the time this thing happened, go back 2 months, 6 months, whatever you want to do for your time. I would look for violent offenders that targeted women especially. Anybody that would kind of fit that mold, I'd want to be alibying them.
Yeah.
I want to find out where they were, and I'd DNA them.
How about that? We got to congratulate Major Rammer Jammer. Shadow says congratulations as well. He says, hello, everyone. I'm back. Sorry, Jared. I've officially retired a major in the Army. Expiration terms of service. How about that? Hoorah! We love it. So congratulations on that, Rammer Jammer. Shadow and I appreciate it. Unedited, welcome there.
Get a swab, cheek swab, whatever you need. Just to
And thank you for your service.
have it, if they didn't already have it in CODIS. And hopefully they already did.
Yeah, you mentioned polygraphs. I learned they did use polygraphs to clear people, and I'm guessing family members, because they were so quick to say the family has been cleared. What's it like using I mean, did you use them a lot when you were?
I found them to be a really good tool. I used them anytime I thought there was a need for it.
Yeah.
We were lucky in California. California State Department of Justice at the Attorney General's office in Sacramento, they had a team of polygraph guys. There was, I think, 3 of them. One in particular I worked with almost exclusively because he was actually my neighbor. And he was based out of Sacramento, but he lived 2 doors down from me. And he was one of the most skilled interrogators I've ever met. He was so skilled that I remember on several occasions, he took people that passed voice stress analysis and he rolled them into confessions on crimes because they passed the voice stress. But with the poly and his ability to communicate.
How do you do that? How does that work?
Well, he knew that they'd passed the voice stress analysis, but we poly these guys anyway. And so when he would come up with the indication of deception because of their physical responses to the specific questions, and these aren't ambush questions, Brian. The questions in a poly before they ask them, and you can have some input if you want to maybe rephrase it a certain way. But when they find the indications of deception because of the reaction, then he comes back, and it's not just 4 questions: did you kill her? Did you bury her? It's, is your name Brian?
Yeah, they got to establish a baseline. Okay, this is what they're like when they're telling the truth. What are they like if they're deviating from the truth, right? And granted, a polygraph, why isn't it admissible in court? Probably because it can be a nerve-wracking situation and it isn't an exact science. But if you really do egregiously, the detectives will probably take a look at that and say, well, there's probably a reason they're doing so egregiously, so we're going to look into it.
Do you have the best hair in the industry?
Yeah.
I mean, questions that you have to say yes to because they're truthful. And then you ask pre-reviewed questions with him that he's going to say no to that are actually true, or vice versa. So you find a truth-telling style and a baseline in the reaction on the polygraph so that when he does get hit with a question that triggers it, and it's not foolproof because there's certain personalities that can defeat a polygraph. I don't think there's a ton of them.
I think a good psychopath could defeat a polygraph. As George from Seinfeld said, it's not a lie if you believe it to be true.
But it's not just the polygraph itself. It's the polygraph leads into the post-polygraph interview, which is when they go over and dissect all the indications of deception. And then, like in the particular, this Doug Mansfield investigator that I worked with from DOJ, he had this this News Nation personality ability to communicate with people, where he would draw this stuff out of them. And so
there's a real skill to it. It's not just set up the machine and
it's not like rotating your tires or scrubbing your barbecue or, hanging a picture on the wall. It's much different than that. And anybody who's been around polygraphs, if they've used them successfully, they find they're a pretty useful tool.
How do you handle as a detective, like even in the Guthrie situation, like you said, you have to look into the family members. That's just right. That just has to happen.
Yeah.
But these people are also victims.
Right.
And so you have to be respectful, I'm sure. Like, how would you handle that when you were working? Like,
well,
because you're kind of like side-eyeing them, but at the same time, probably feel bad. You know what I mean? Like,
it really goes with your ability to show genuine compassion to people, but taking and having the patience to explain to them why you do what you do for those reasons. And I remember in particular one woman, it was a random killing, and of course we immediately looked at the husband, but we could clear him really quickly. And this happened, many times. And we told people, we have to do this because it has nothing to do with you. But when we go to court, if we haven't done this, they're going to say, why didn't you do that? And that gives the jury the reasonable doubt to let this guy go. So just bear with us. It's short-lived.
So you have to you tell them, basically.
Yeah. And this is the thing that was so interesting about, police investigations on violent crimes, is that if you enjoyed that, I enjoyed it a lot. It was interesting, and you ended up making relationships with people that you never would have met in your life. This one particular guy, his wife gunned down in a random killing. We ended up having lunch about 3 times a year for several years until he passed away. He just, and I always felt kind of weird about it, because I thought, why do you want to have lunch with me? I mean, my personality. Why would anybody want to have lunch with me? But I think I got the impression that it made him feel good that somebody was on his side for his wife's thing, instead of bringing up a bad memory. And that was my worry, is that anytime I would meet with him, it would dredge up a terrible memory.
Interesting.
So people are different.
I'm just thinking of the detectives working on Guthrie. Like, when I cover a story, sometimes before I get to the story, I will have an image in my head of what it's going to be and like how it's going to go and what's going to be important. And sometimes it's hard for me to like shake that when I get there, when I realize that that's not the case anymore, because I've kind of built it up.
Yeah, you got to watch out for those preconceived notions, because you got to be flexible and adapt to the information you see in front of you. Some people get hell-bent. And I wonder if that's something Sheriff Nanos might have done. Remember, he said in the beginning, we've known since day 2 or 1 what the motive of this case was. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure you've known since day 1 what the motive is? Are you sure you're just not being inflexible and you have this preconceived notion and you're not able to move off of it? I don't know.
In my head before.
Yeah.
And is it like that when you're investigating or how do you keep an open mind?
Well, and I've known detectives who didn't.
Yeah.
And he's known detectives who didn't. Like my friend Dan Carlin says, wisdom requires a flexible mind.
Would look and they'd be convinced from the start, this is the way it happened, and that'll ruin your case. And that one guy that taught me, Dick Ridenauer, just a stellar detective. He didn't know what a great teacher he was, because you could be doing something stupid and he wouldn't make you feel stupid. He'd say, well, yeah, that's something good we should do, but let's wait a couple days and let's do this instead. And so he allowed you to salvage your fragile ego when you were learning how to do these cases. But
Sheriff Nano's like, did someone say fragile ego?
He always told me, he said, if there's something good to say about the defendant or the guy that you're looking at, the suspect, you put it in the report. And if there's some bad stuff that indicates he did it, you put it in the report. Because if the defense finds out that you knew good things about him and you left it out of your report, there's where they attack you for bias and for inconsistency.
Yeah. And
you were trying to hang a charge on somebody that could have been not guilty. So valuable advice to me. And this is the problem that we run into when you rotate detectives into an assignment that, it's not like a purse snatch at Target in the parking lot. Violent crimes, especially murder, an abduction like this, you really have to have people that are experienced. And there's a certain arrogance that I think some of the times the administrators see with people underneath them that are really good at something. And they don't, I don't know, they have some resentment towards it. I've seen it a few times. I don't understand it, but
Yeah.
there's some resentment there. I don't
Or
know.
they get emotional. Like, you just seem so objective. Like, even when you've talked about with us about, bad guys, I mean, you don't really go into it like hating them. Or, I mean, you're kind of like open-minded and you almost respect them in a way to get information out of them, it seems.
It's funny you get mentioned that because, we talked about that before, but there were far more guys that I arrested for homicide that I actually liked than there were guys that I arrested that I didn't like. Other than the part where they killed somebody that didn't deserve.
Oh, that's an interesting observation. He said, I'm not sure if you caught this. He said he arrested more people for homicide that he did like than he did people that he didn't like. That is interesting. So let's hear his explanation about that. That's interesting. But what does that speak to? I guess it speaks to a charismatic, fun killer, I guess. Charming.
To die. A lot of them were just really pretty likable. They could be sitting here with us and we could be ordering room service and we'd chat and have a good time. There were only a couple of really, truly TV quality evil people. There was a guy who murdered a gal with a claw hammer, and he's just an air thief. I don't like to be that way, but the world would be better if he wasn't breathing. There was a couple others that were just so evil. They just had no redeeming qualities at all. But even Peterson, I mean, we've talked about him before. He's a pretty likable guy. He just did something stupid, and he's paying for it.
Yeah, I wonder about that with the Nancy Guthrie suspect. Like, is it going to end up being someone that just needed money and didn't really want to hurt her? I mean, it's still terrible what they did, obviously, but like, it could end up. And even when Savannah was doing those videos in the beginning, she would almost make a point of like almost humanizing the person in a way. Like, well, we understand. Like, maybe it will end up being someone that didn't intend to kill her or harm her.
I think more than likely that's what's going to come out of it.
Yeah.
I don't. There's nothing that I have seen. Of course, it's limited. We don't have all the information, but there's nothing that I've seen on this case that suggests that murder was the primary, reason for doing this. I just don't think it was there.
I mean, you might not see evidence of that, but if you put the pieces of the puzzle together and the context clues, it seems like a pretty likely scenario to me that it was a hit. He's saying, no, I don't see it. I can't see it.
Yeah. What do you think? There's been some reports, and I haven't been able to confirm this, and I don't even necessarily believe it's true, but it's interesting to talk about that Savannah Guthrie has either hired or is considering hiring like private investigators.
She did.
Spending a good deal of money to do that at this point. I mean, if you were advising her, is that become necessary at some point? If you lose some faith in, law enforcement?
That suggests to me that she's losing, some faith, and there may be some legitimate reasons for that. I mean, you can't say. The only problem is I have a private investigator license, but if somebody got a hold of me and said, "Would you look into this?" I can't really do much for you because I don't have access to the specific things that the investigators have access to. So I don't really know that they can do anything much.
This still seems like a weird setup here, though, right? To walk out to this, what would you call this? A memorial in front of all these cameras like this. One could consider this performative, maybe.
Different consultants, whether it's my friend Kip who does the high-tech stuff, he would be somebody that could volunteer to assist the locals on this thing and maybe tell them some technology things that maybe they're not aware of, something like that. But to bring outsiders in, to me, that muddies things up and it could create some problems. But Savannah's got to make that call.
Yeah.
You know, it's her mom.
It's got to be hard.
Oh, enormously hard. Yeah. I mean, every day she wakes up to this. I mean, you get a break from it. I get a break from it because other things, you know, are present in our lives.
Yeah.
But for Savannah and her brother and her sister, every day they wake up, they're thinking about their mom. Every night they go to bed.
I mean, seriously, right? If you're Savannah, Annie, and Tommaso there, why not just do that when they all go home? Like, do that at nighttime when they're all home or something. Have a private moment. I don't know. I don't know what their motivations were with it. Maybe they were legit. Maybe not. I don't know.
Thinking about their mom, intrusive thoughts throughout the day, trying to resume a normal life, thoughts about their mom.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't get really much relief from it.
And also, if I was Savannah, she's probably also worried about her own safety, her own kids. You don't know who this person is. You don't know whether they wanted to get an emotional response out of you, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Shadow's looking at me side-eyed because he didn't see that we got into 100 likes yet. He said, we haven't gotten to 100 likes. Where's my soy-free hoodie snacks? And also he said, remember to tell them that super chat, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting memberships, great ways to support the channel. As is buying some of the Black Sheep Nation / Revenge of the Black Sheep shirts. They also help. Soy-free hoodie snacks for Shadow. You can find that in the YouTube shopping section. I'll be adding more things to that too as time goes on. We can use different versions of the logos as well.
That's scary. You know, they have a task force now. It's not as many people as it was initially. Obviously, I think they sent like dozens and dozens of agents there. Now it's the task force made up of a couple of FBI agents and detectives, but they work on it full time.
Right.
Is that a concern?
Well, for me, not one bit.
Okay.
Here's why. When you start something like this, there are just so many things to do, and they all have a kind of certain similar amount of importance. And so you do have to bring in a lot of people and pretty much dogpile on this stuff. And as those things get investigated and they get documented and you get those things cleared or you answer whatever the question is on those, then the amount of staff hours you need and the amount of people you need starts to go down. And we saw this with Peterson. There would be times when we were doing the 14, 16-hour days. And then as a period of time, we were able to get that stuff done and it tapered off. And then we were kind of getting back to normal. And okay, well, what's going to happen next? And then another load was, you know, a truck would back up and another load would dump on us. And then you high speed again for several days.
Yeah.
So there were peaks and valleys. But now having fewer people on it, to me, is not an issue whatsoever.
Is it actually a good thing? They more focused?
Might be better.
Yeah.
Might be better.
Yeah, great, cool. Thank you, as always.
gosh.
Appreciate you very much. Yeah,
Right
that was
back at
great.
you.
Really appreciate John for taking the time to talk with me. Again, he's just an awesome guy who I've got to know. And appreciate you guys for watching. I was actually at Crime Con for the weekend, which is like the big true crime conference. That's where I met up with John. And it's interesting. You know, I've been the last couple of years. At first I thought like,
Where is he? The airport or a mall? I guess it's the airport, right?
oh, is it going to be kind of cheesy? Like, you know, you hear Crime Con, almost like Comic-Con, but it's actually pretty serious. There's a lot of victims' families that go, attorneys, detectives. So it's pretty cool. And my favorite part is just meeting all the people who watch my podcast and are into all of the stories that I cover. So it was great. If any of you guys were there and are watching, it was really, really great. Sorry, it's loud in here. It was really, really great meeting you guys. It was a lot of fun. And also saw the Petitos, which was awesome. Saw the Gonzalez's and all
The Petitos, Gabby's parents.
of them have become friends of mine. So it was a pretty nice weekend in that way. But anyway, I'll be busy this week. I got a ton of new stories I'm working on. So I'll have a lot for you guys. And I'll talk to you guys later.
See you later, Brian. Remember to support Brian. Also, remember to like this video and subscribe to this channel as well. Shadow and I appreciate all the support. Because remember, when you're a member, you get access to the members-only live streams, the Chillin' A's and Chillin' Q&A's. Grand old time. Now, in this video from Tony, there's Robin and Jen talk about the pacemaker. And we'll see what we think about this. And now they've also talked about a lot of other things, but things we've heard them talk about before.
large property.
This is Hidden Killers Live.
Are the ones that stretch for the facts are actually locked, not theories, not leaks, but machine timestamps and a 911 log that is now out there. A camera goes dark at 1:47 in the morning. A pacemaker loses its signal at 2:28. Later that day, after a call that Nancy had missed church, family walks into her home and is on the phone with 911 within 7 minutes. What those first hours now show us, what the records prove, what's still being kept from the public, and what a fast by-the-book start says about a case that's frozen ever since is worth slowing all the way down on. And that's what we're going to be doing today. Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI special agent, joining myself, and Robin Dreek, retired FBI special agent, chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Jen, let's start with what we know about the time. The family, the record puts them in the house at 11:56. They're on the phone with 911 by 12:03. So they get in. Where's mom? Let's look around. I mean, it's a very reasonable, oh God, what the hell's going on? Just within 10 minutes of them calling 911 once they get to the house. When you're looking at this from an investigative standpoint, what does it tell you about the speed of the call? What kind of a tell is that about that family that's in distress knowing mom is not there?
Well, it tells me that I believe they went in through the garage because that's how they let her in, and it seemed like that was their usual pattern. They went in, and again, Mom, where are you? Mom got the call. We look around, and these grounds are not easy. This is not just a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch. This is a larger, spread-out house on a large property. So from there, you're going to always go in and check her guest house, just in case she went in there, heard something, had to get something out of there. Obviously, you're looking in the pool, and you're looking at all the grounds. And when you look at this time frame, that pretty much sets up about 7 minutes likely to accomplish all of that. And to me, when they then went out that front door and looked from the front door vantage and saw the blood, 911, oh my God, she's gone.
Yeah,
I mean, I do think that's a possibility that they didn't notice it right away if they went through the garage. Sure. Now, how much more time would that take them? I don't know. But I do think in terms of the Pima County law enforcement, the second that you see that blood on the front step, you then think, no, this isn't just a walk away. She didn't just wander away from home. And again, they shouldn't have thought that anyway, considering the mobility issues Nancy Guthrie had. But we did find out that's what they thought initially. But once that blood was on the front step, they should have wiped that from their minds really fast. I don't know how quickly they did. Seems like it wasn't right away, though.
That's the moment that I'm sure their hearts probably sunk. I mean, at first, I imagine anything could be going through your head. You know, did she get picked up somewhere? Did she go for a walk? She couldn't go for a walk. Her cane's right here. All these things running through their minds in that sheer moment of panic, and then they see the blood on that porch. The 911 call is the one that started everything. And all of this time later, the public still hasn't heard a second of the 911 call yet. It's being held back, they say, for the investigation itself. But you've been on the inside of calls like that when the recording that kicked off this whole case still stays locked up for this long, and we still don't have her. Well, I guess what's being protected? Why can't we hear the 911 call?
They're always going to protect that call in a case like this. And they did the same thing in the Idaho 4 case. We never heard that call until well into the adjudication of that case. So they're going to follow that. There's no reason the public doesn't need to know. Clues, the torch by spruce, and if you a vehicle, that's what the public can help with. They're not going to release anything unless the public can provide help. Other than that, they don't care that the public doesn't.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the 911 call, Jen, because only when we started looking at this, like, oh my gosh, we haven't had the 911 call, especially since 911 calls, as you know, are so telling because you can really you can really predict whether someone has involvement or non-involvement. A lot of times, not all times, but a lot of times from a 911 call. I would think if they're looking to clear family and show how they're not involved, just how they make that 911 call could really dispel a lot of those conspiracy theories on it, I would think. Any thoughts on that?
So I find it interesting, Robin, that in so many cases, no matter what the person says on the 911 call, it's going to be scrutinized. If they're in panic and go crazy, they say, oh my gosh, it's an act. If they are calm, they say, see, they don't even care that she's missing. So to me,
And Jen's not wrong about this. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in some people's eyes. So Shadow and I try to be careful not to be that way.
there's no upside if I'm an investigator to release the call, because I think it makes the dogs come out against the family no matter what was said, especially when the dogs were already released on the family.
And unless you actually know 911 calls and you can see it really readily, and to help tamp those people down. I mean, the 911. So when I worked at Quantico, we had an amazing woman. I don't know if you remember Sue Adams. She used to teach at the FBI Academy a lot for many years. She did a great research study with another law enforcement professional years ago, and they actually did the research on it, and they came up with a formula on 911 calls. I think that had about 90% accuracy, being able to tell whether the caller was actually the perpetrator of the crime themselves. So there's a lot of studies from the statement analysis. I know it doesn't help the general public at large, but hopefully maybe that's.
Let's hear that again. That's a pretty interesting stat. That person knew within 90% accuracy whether the person that dialed 911 committed the crime or not. Wouldn't that be interesting to get their viewpoint on the Corey Richards call then, huh? Let's see, though.
Dogs were already released on the family.
And unless you actually know 911 calls and you can see it really readily, and to help tamp those people down. I mean, 911. So when I worked at Quantico, we had an amazing woman. I don't know if you remember Sue Adams. She used to teach at the FBI Academy a lot for many years. She did a great research study with another law enforcement professional years ago, and they actually did the research on it, and they came up with a formula on 911 calls. I think that had about 90% accuracy, being able to tell whether the caller was actually the perpetrator of the crime themselves.
What a fascinating thing, huh? I would love to hear them go over that Corey Richards call to 911. And again, of course, it'd be interesting if they released the 911 call in this case with Annie Guthrie. It'd be interesting to hear what they said about that. But for the reasons that Jen said, they don't want to release it in this case, probably because they don't want scrutiny for them. That they don't want Annie and Tommaso to get even more scrutiny. Because like Jen said, some people will say not emotive enough, or other people will say too emotive, it's performative. Which one is it, right?
So there's a lot of studies from the statement analysis. I know it doesn't help the general public at large, but hopefully maybe that's part of see, that's why it would have helped if Nanos said something to the effect of, we analyzed the 911 call. The BAU analyzed the 911 call. That was part of our way that we got rid of the family as suspects, rather than just say, no, they're not considered anymore.
Yeah, no, they could have listed so many things. For instance, the polygraph results. They could have talked about the digital trail. They could have talked about all the car information that disclosed that, listen, every Saturday night they go back and forth this way. Uber's called, and then, key drops are off. They could have done so much, but I think, how law enforcement is. They're going to say the bare minimum they can to get the point across, and they're not going to give up much about what they did or didn't do.
It's not too late. Why don't they do it now?
Yeah, no kidding.
It would help Nanos. But Nanos is being quiet, right? I think Nanos has learned his lesson. Somebody's gotten through to him. Just shut up. He finally is in the clear, if you will. Nobody can get rid of him. I don't think the recall vote, that's the only thing left outstanding, and I don't think that's going to work. So he's kind of in the clear. So he's gone turtle.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering about, because of, the dogs that were unleashed on the family immediately. And then Nanos, a little while after, it makes it somewhat generic. And look, I'm stating this as I don't believe the family's involved, but I'm stating this in a perspective of, okay, he makes his statement of they're cleared as generically as he does. And that almost further enrages the conspiracy theories out there. why not come out and say, okay, yeah, I gave you the generic version, but here's why. Here's why I've cleared them. This, and this. This is the evidence. We have it now. I should have released it earlier. I did not. It helps him. It clears up his shortcomings, and it helps the family if they have absolutely nothing here to hide, and I don't think they do. It further solidifies their story as well and their alibi. I guess why not at this point come out with more solid, evidence-based decision-making background on some of these, words that he's thrown into the ether. If they're there, why are they there? I believe there's probably a reason for it, but why not shut down the noise, I guess, at this point? Or do they just not care about the noise? Because I know the family certainly cares about the noise around this.
I think because it'll cause more noise. It's opening Pandora's box.
Yeah.
So they polygraph. Okay, now we want to see them. When were they polygraphed? What happened? Polygraph. Okay, let's see the digital evidence. You've already disclosed that it's there, so what's it going to hurt to let us know about it? So I think it just opens Pandora's box, and that's why they're not going to touch it.
Makes sense.
I get it's a shame, but there are a lot of, we're critical thinkers on our show. It would help the critical thinkers that have actually critically thought through the family not being involved. It'd help tamp down the nutters, because you're always going to have nutters. There's always going to be people that are conspiracy theorists, and without a little bit, granted, I'm not arguing it because I totally get it. It opens up Pandora's box again, but then it gets more attention on the case again, and then you have critical thinking people out here that are.
So I don't know if you saw what I just did, but so this is one of them, The Revenge of the Black Sheep. And there's one that Laura helped me make. That was a Black Sheep Nation. So it's whatever one you prefer. And I like it so that the logo's smaller. If people like bigger logos, you can let me know. But I wear these around because I actually like them.
They're saying, hey, look, because boom, boom, boom. Look over here, here, here. I don't know.
True. Yeah. I mean, it's a battle of feelings at this point, but there's obviously some, real repercussions for how things were handled early on in this. And I'm not just speaking from the Nanos standpoint. The night itself left a trail. Her camera dies at 1:47, motion trips at 2:12, her pacemaker drops off at 2:28. These are actual timestamps that we now have. When you line those three up in that order, Jen, I mean, what stands out to you? Is there anything chilling about the way that lays out? How does that read to you?
Well, a couple of things. One of the things is, let's start with the 212 in the middle. At the 212 where a person is seen, right? They can't make anything out, but they believe it's a person. And remember, that's another one of the spontaneous utterances of Nanos, right?
Mm-hmm.
He says, and he's like, oh, or it could be a pig or whatever, an animal. I think he says something like that. But I mean, clearly a person. Or else that wouldn't be on the timeline. And he wouldn't have made the spontaneous utterance. Anyway, so now we're at 212. Mope, porch guy, is not in any hurry that we've seen on camera. And I wouldn't believe that behavior would suddenly change at 212. So now he meanders over to the back, and now he's got to open a door. So he's got to breach the door. We still don't know for sure whether a door was left open or whether it wasn't. But nevertheless, let's just say he has to breach it. If he has to breach it, that takes some time. I think I can breach a door that doesn't have a deadlock in probably under 2 minutes. So let's just say that he knows how to do that. He does it under 2 minutes. If it's a deadbolt, that's even more difficult. But now he's got the door breached. He gets it. That's a period of time. And there's only from 212 to 228 with the disconnection. Then he has to go in. And if he has studied her layout of her house, he could go pretty quickly there and make the assumption she's in the bedroom. Then he has to grab her, get her. I think that there is some violence used. And I say that because I truly believe that blood is expirated on the porch, which is typically a sign of internal bleeding. Mm-hmm. And so I think he probably violently grabs her. And for somebody who is as frail as she is on blood thinners, I think that probably caused some damage. And he grabs her. I think he puts her over the shoulder, or in this stance where her head is a little bit closer to the ground, and grabs. Remember, she's over 150 pounds.
Yeah.
this is not an easy task if it's just him. The door, he has already got the camera off. He opens it from the inside, walks out with her, and that time frame pretty much comports.
So we're talking, I mean, how long are we talking here in terms of minutes of them getting into the house and getting her out when we're looking at this data that now is out there? What do we add?
16 minutes from the time he is seen on the side of the house. Remember, porch guy in an injury. He mopes over there, goes to the back, looks around. I think I'll go in this door. For some reason, he props open the doors. I don't think those were propped open. I know some people said, well, maybe she liked a breeze. My problem with that is she knows there's javelinas out there and wildlife. I mean, that's why she got the cameras.
Well, I mean, a thought process might be too, like, I'm going to have to carry her, prop it open so it's open, but then go get her. Then just don't shut the door when you leave. I don't know. I mean, that might be part of the thought process. Robin, what are your thoughts?
I'm just still thinking about trying to sling her over my shoulder with a backpack on at 150 pounds. That's, I'm just thinking about the awkwardness of trying.
Yeah, I agree with Robin there. I don't think that's what happened. I think if there's more than one person, they both had their arms were under her shoulders, under her armpits, I would guess. Not over their shoulder. I just think that would be so much more awkward than you would think.
Trying to do that, like you're saying, Jen, or was he carrying in front of her and carrying 150 pounds like a sack? That's a large feat. I mean, that's a huge feat. I don't know how the guy kind of going to the point where a lot of people are saying this is well planned out because he's still at large. Yeah, kind of. But like this looks like if he's targeting her, getting her out of there was a real fatal flaw in how he's going to execute that. Like you said, I agree. I think he probably grabbed her quickly once they encountered each other. Her being frail, but frail at 150. I mean, that's with again because again,
150 pounds is still 150 pounds, and if it's dead weight in particular, like if she's knocked out, that's heavy. It's heavy. I just don't think they put her over their shoulder. I think two people carried her to the car, and they probably dragged some of her as well. But that's kind of what I envision. Now, is there possibilities it was something else? Sure. I'm not ruling those possibilities out.
Think about this, that hefty backpack he on really jutted out from his back, and you're trying to get something over your shoulder. So she's not going to be draping down the back of his back. She's going to be sliding forward. Again, you just kind of putting yourself in that situation. That's a hard carry.
Was that part of, I guess we got to go back to then was.
And user, I've always said, there's certainly a possibility that the person that did this, as with any true crime case, they could be watching all of the content about them. And that goes for Mackenzie Sharila's parents too. I wouldn't be surprised if they're watching some of this. I wouldn't be surprised if they watch the coverage of all of the channels to talk about it. I mean, her dad admitted as much. He likes that guy Crime Circus. And again, I mean, we're going to go over more Mackenzie in the future. And again, I still do think a good lawyer might have been able to get her off, or at least have it be a reduced thing. Because, I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprised the judge actually saw through what she thinks her intention was. And again, the next video we go over it, I'll give some more of my thoughts on it again. But it's interesting. It's interesting.
Taking Nancy the intent, or was Nancy being taken like an oh shit moment of, now I got to carry her out of here because she's part of the evidence because I got my DNA on her from whatever it may be, scratching or whatever. I don't know. I mean, because again, if you're thinking he's going into this to steal or to do something of that nature, he looks equipped for that. He doesn't necessarily look like he's equipped and ready to haul somebody out. That doesn't, I don't know that he'd go in.
Walk out.
Yeah, go into there with, I don't know. I've never done this. You guys have far more experience.
Flock of black sheep. Welcome to the stream here, Jilly. Jilly's a new subscriber, so give her a Black Sheep Nation welcome for Shadow and I. Or Shadow and me, as it should be at the end of a sentence.
in worlds of this nature than me, but I don't know. It doesn't. I agree. It doesn't necessarily look like that was part of the plan. But again, nothing's necessarily stolen either, other than Nancy. So we're back at square one. What was the intent here going in? Knowing what we see of this timeline, knowing how short this was, about 16 minutes or so from start to finish. Jen, where are you at this week with it? Do you think the intent was a wrench attack, or just an intent to take Nancy, period? Or does this lean more into a surprise and they took Nancy out because she was basically part of the evidence?
I've been square for months on this. This was a ransom gone bad. That's it. Now, as far as who's pulling the strings on it, I'm definitely leaning toward a more organized wrench type attack in this type of a deal. But I have believed from the onset, no thieving, not one thief I know goes in with a backpack like that. That's what you take empty to fill up with all the things you're going to steal. You ransack the place. You typically have more than one person. You don't this obscure place. I have never believed, not at one moment, that this was a home invasion or some thieves, that it all went south. Never believed that personally. I've always said the abduction was the point. And when they go in there and take her, I agree with Robin also based on the blood spatter. If she is slung over the shoulder, I think the mist and the spatter that would have come out from where she was bleeding, you would see those pockets of emptiness on the blood that drops, and you don't.
I love to see how welcoming the flock of black sheep here is, as Mayor welcomes Jilly to the herd. I love it.
See that. You also don't see footprints, is why I think he did it solo. I don't think there were two people, at least at this point of it, because I think you would see footprints and you would see that blood smudged and messed up. And that's why I think the family didn't go in the front. Because if you were going in the front, how often do you really look down?
Yeah.
You would have just walked up there in a hurry, but their modus operandi is always to go to that garage, seemingly, right? That's how she got in the night before. So I think that was the oh crap moment. And I really believe, and this is how I've described it from the beginning, that it wasn't a fireman's carry. It was more of a cradled carry. And you're right, Robin, that
I agree with Jen on that part. I think, I don't think it was a fireman's carry, a cradle, or arms under her armpits kind of thing. Just from the front step into the driveway, where the car is probably at the front of the driveway there, like on the U. So think of an upside down U. That's what the driveway looks like. The car is at the top of the U. They drag her to the car, put her in the car, drive away. Not over the shoulder. I think there's probably two people.
Had to have two steps for that.
So let's go down the road of your theory of targeted either by a group or organization or him as an individual. In either event, because of the way he prepped himself, if he's solo in there, which it looks like we're agreeing he was solo in there, the intent was not to incapacitate her 100% because he wasn't prepared for incapacitation. He wasn't equipped for it. And if a group organization was behind this, they have reps in this. If this is something he's been doing before and it's a wrench attack, they have reps in this. And the reps would say, if your intent was to carry her out of there incapacitated, this is not the way it would have looked. So I definitely think that if that was the intent, the intent was to remove her from the house under her own motor skills, not to have to carry her out, because it makes no sense about how they did it whatsoever. Someone that had at least done it once before, where they incapacitated the victim, would not have done it that way.
I agree, and I also believe that these wrench, and we'll just keep going with that theory, meaning somebody organized that's making these decisions, that initially targeted her and then got somebody to do this through payment, which is our Moat Porch guy. If that is the premise, these individuals are not, this could have been, and I think it was likely his first rodeo. He's on the dark web getting picked out, and he wants to do it. He wants the money. He wants to be Rambo for a night. And it doesn't mean that he's good at what he's done, because you're right. He doesn't have the reps. He can't even figure out how to pull off the ring camera because his gloves are 5 sizes too big. And then he has to get that and grip it and take both hands and get that plant matter deposited deep into the holder.
Yeah.
So it was just waving it. A lot of people, again, that, I know it's psychobabble that, the ivy, like it meant something. I just don't think that's the case here. I think it was purposeful.
I don't see a world where the plant matter was pre-planned. Like, oh yeah, just go grab some plants and that'll work out great for whatever. It's like that seemed to be a desperate move of it'll do you to get some traction using this. Okay, do that. It doesn't seem to be the work of a super experienced. But and that's the weird thing with these wrench attacks is I've studied up on them too this week. I mean, it essentially doesn't matter, who your idiots are, your mopes are that you're using, because if it all goes to hell, it's not going to be traced back to you anyhow, and you can just try it with another person next time. And there's a first time for everything for folks who want to sign up for missions like this. And
Nanny, what I have to do, I didn't realize, I forgot you're in Australia, so I have to add that location to be able to ship to.
Again, this might be the first time for this guy, and this is what you got.
He was pretty fluid for a first time though, so it might have been a first. So again, going down Jen's theory, if he's hired by someone as a mope, it wasn't his first time doing a B&E, because he was fluid. That might have been his first attempt at this. Then it goes back to my question for you, Jen. So if we're looking at behaviorally, we're looking at intent for a wrench attack, she's got to be alive, got to be conscious, and he wasn't prepared to have to be carrying her out. So her being incapacitated was not part of the plan. So then why remove her and not leave her?
Oh, I totally agree. But I don't think necessarily, I mean, she wasn't dead and he would have known that.
Right.
If she were dead, she couldn't expirate. So just because somebody isn't mobile enough, like you need them to be, the cane was left behind. We know that now for certain. I don't think she walked out on her own accord.
Definitely not.
Recently, though, a crime scene reconstructionist type person.
I mean, personally, I think she might have walked out the front door, but shortly thereafter, I think she was punched or struck, and hence the blood. That's what I think. And again, I'm not ruling out other possibilities, but I think they maybe escorted her out to the front door, and then maybe as she walks out the front door, she's thinking to herself, you know what? Maybe I don't want to go down without a fight, even though it's unlikely I'll win this fight, but why make it easy on them? So maybe she struggles on the front step and they strike her, unfortunately. Maybe they punch her. Maybe they use an object, which is, both of those are pretty bad scenarios. And then I think she falls forward on her knees, maybe catches herself with her hands, and then coughs. And that's some of the blood that you see. And then I think while she's in that position, imagine there's 2 guys on either side of her, and they pick her up from under her armpits and they drag her to the car. That's just the scenario that I see in my head. Doesn't mean I'm right, but that's just a scenario I see.
They said she did, and that she was actually like crawling and was that close to the ground. I just don't believe that. I think he was like, we're getting out of here, Grandma. And then I think it's likely she could have even been unconscious, and that wasn't expected. But I don't think she was dead.
Yeah. So if she's bleeding, and he had her crawl out of there, I think you'd have a DNA trail of something if she was doing it that way. Because I think any other bodily fluids coming off of her was being absorbed by whatever he was wearing. So to cover that his tracks unintentionally on the way out. But yeah, it's the whole thing's crazy.
Yeah. Another week and more questions than answers, really, on this. Your thoughts in the comment section on Substack and YouTube. We'd love for you to weigh in, and we'll continue that part of the conversation right there.
Want more on this case and other?
Yeah, I think like the life energy in her said, you know what? I don't want to go down with a whimper here. Granted, I'm an 84-year-old woman, but it's going to be your second nature just to not go along with it, right? Let's see here. So we just watched that one with the Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker catch. They didn't even go over that in that video. Let's see this one.
This is the Big Breakdown, a long look back at some of the biggest stories we're covering for you at the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi and Robin Drake.
A growing theory in the Nancy Guthrie investigation centers on something called a wrench attack, highly organized crypto extortion schemes that use violent home invasions and kidnappings to target wealthy victims and demand cryptocurrency ransoms. These operations are run by sophisticated networks that stay almost impossible to trace. Jennifer Coffendaffer, retired FBI special agent, is with us to help explore it. I know I had never heard the term wrench attack until I saw you were posting about it this week. Explain to me more about what a wrench attack is and how this might fit the profile of what's going on here.
Well, there's different versions of wrench attacks. So initially, and the whole premise is when you have cryptocurrency, there is no way to get to it except for by having the passkey. Mm-hmm. And so the premise is, listen, we can't get their crypto. The only way to get their crypto is to beat it out of them with a wrench. The wrench comes in because literally a cartoon about this, attacking somebody with a wrench, and it kind of stuck. So just so you know
the genesis of it,
It's not some highfalutin thing. It's just it's a cartoon about beating some of the wrench.
The Tasmanian Devil attack is the next one. You're like
Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah,
super genius.
TNT attack. Yeah,
it's like a TNT attack. So the whole idea is that nobody is going to protect their crypto passkey when they're getting the hell beat out of them with a wrench or other objects. So that's where it comes from. And so, by the way, and check these stats, but in 2024, there was $813 million paid in cryptocurrency for ransoms. In 2023, over 1 billion paid. So while we don't hear about it a lot, I don't normally see this out there. We don't talk about a lot of kidnappings for some reason. I think because they always resolve quicker. Right? Mm-hmm. The person is dead, they get the people, they don't get the people, but you never hear about it. And so, but this is what kidnappers want because you can.
And by the way, folks, please remember to like the video because likes are free. Spank the like button. Leave your DNA of choice on the like button. Throw Shadow here a like vest the same way Brian Hooker should have to Lynette Hooker, but did not. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Tell a few friends about the flock of black sheep here. We have a very lively, eccentric, energetic, and supportive group. Shadow and I would have it no other way, though. I usually go live between 10 and 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 or 6 nights a week. Often I take off Sunday nights, but not always. I did this week. But we talk about true crime, current events, and psychology. And as always, super chats, super stickers, becoming a channel member, or gifting channel memberships, great ways to support the channel. To help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl's soy-free hoodie snacks. Right now, there's a Revenge of the Black Sheep shirt and a Black Sheep Nation shirt for sale. Right now, I only have the shipping to America. So as people from other countries try to buy one, just let me know. And I can add those places. Also, what was the other thing? Oh, yeah, I'll probably be adding maybe some coffee mugs, maybe some stickers, maybe some magic wands, maybe some Shadow cousins and brothers and sisters. We'll see. We'll see what unfolds for us here. We'll see how I'm starting small to make sure it goes well. And then as it goes well, small, then we can expand. And thank you very much for all of the support I've gotten so far.
Can't trace it very easily at all. It's very difficult, and the money is instantaneously in your wallet, and then you can get rid of it instantaneously. So for these reasons, this is what kidnappers use, and there's kidnappings all over the world all the time.
Yeah.
I got the numbers.
Oh, good. Did you confirm what I said? I'm going by my memory.
Yeah, 2023, 1.25 billion. 2024, 813, 892.
As far as Brian Hooker goes, there is nothing new. I mean, the Coast Guard took the SS Soulmate. They were looking for evidence on it. They were actually sending search teams to targeted locations. As far as we know, they found nothing with that. They caught Brian in a few more lies. No surprise there. So, to me, they're either just building the case or hoping they find the body. But if they don't find the body, it's not impossible to prosecute without the body. You can still do that. You just have to first prove she's dead, and then prove that he's the most likely one to do it, which honestly shouldn't be that difficult considering the scenario. But you never know. You never know where they can run into some hiccups there. But some of this I learned from Matt Murphy's book, The Book of Murder, who I'm still trying to orchestrate discussions with to get him on the show. It hasn't been finalized yet. I've been talking to his assistant. So hopefully we can get that squared away, because I think we would have an awesome discussion, and I would love to be able to talk to people like him that are in the prosecutor world, true crime world, etc. I already did speak to Mike King before from Profiling Evil. He is at CrimeCon right now, actually. And Julie Martino, one of the Flock of Black Sheep members, she said hello to him for me, which was awesome of her to do.
2 million, 2025, 820 million.
Already.
In
So-
cryptocurrency ransoms.
People
It's an industry.
industry people.
Lori Vallow did the wrong thing with this whole, life insurance shit, huh? Sorry.
Out of the wrong business, Lori.
Yeah, it's the future. It really is the future.
Future of ransoming.
The future of kidnapping.
The
We should do it
future's
like
here
a corporate video. The future of kidnapping is here. Introducing wrench attacks. We could get some interesting spokespeople for it. It'd be exciting. Yeah, a little B-roll in there.
Those are big numbers.
So wrench attack. I get the concept. I get, okay, you're getting beaten with a wrench, and they want your password. I'm guessing Nancy Guthrie doesn't have a crypto wallet and a password. So walk me through how it connects into here.
Okay, so how it connects into here, and I actually found another case that so far I've deep dived. I'm sure there's many more out there, and there's many more cases that we don't even know about, right? Because they resolve with payment and so forth. But nevertheless, the one I looked at was actually somebody who did have cryptocurrency, and they kidnapped the father.
Okay.
They kidnapped him, they took him, and they actually kept him in an Airbnb. And I am telling you, it would not surprise me at all if Porch Guy got an Airbnb.
Got it where?
An Airbnb. He had to have someplace to take her.
Right.
And so in this other case I was looking at, they got an Airbnb and they tortured this poor man. They actually cut off his finger before he ended up being rescued, and he survived. And but it was the son that had the money.
Yeah.
Much like in this case. So I saw this parallel. It's not that they just go in and beat the person with the crypto. They beat the relatives of people with the crypto. Now, do we know that Savannah Guthrie?
Oh my, Mabs! It sounds like a drastic issue there. Jared, do you know any supplements that help you sleep peacefully and don't wake yourself up fighting your spouse, punching your spouse in the face? Well, not drugs, but supplements. I like GABA, I like 5-HTP, and I like magnesium. Those are things that I will do in the nighttime. But you have to find out what works for you, because everyone's going to be a little bit different. So I don't like melatonin only because melatonin's a hormone, and they say it's really only good for trying to change time zones. So if you travel a lot, melatonin might be helpful to get you adjusted briefly to a new time zone, but it's not something you want to be reliant on every night, I would say. But you also, like, removing phones for the last hour before bed would probably be helpful. I was actually talking about this with a friend earlier tonight, but not going into bed until it's time to be in bed, things like that. There's many things that could possibly help.
Her husband, who jointly they're worth about 45.6 million, million dollars.
Uh-huh.
As you know, when you are a high wealth individual, you are going to have your assets handled by other people.
You're not going to have your password, like your crypto, like it's handled by an investment company, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I think it's highly possible that their investors had invested in crypto.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
not been denied and it hasn't been supported. We don't know. But I could definitely see that could be probable, particularly because crypto has been exploding. It's on the down right now a little bit. But do you see where I'm going with this?
But they never exercised that lever, though. They never went to them with anything of like, here's Nancy and here's a wrench and it's coming towards her head unless we get your crypto password or anything of that sort. That's where it kind of like, isn't that where it falls apart, or am I missing something here?
I think you're missing something because Porch Guy is a mope, and Porch Guy screwed this whole thing up. I think she was unconscious when she left out of there. I think she was alive because we see the aspirated.
I don't know if she was unconscious. I think she was struck on the front step. Now, if you want to say that made her unconscious, maybe. But do you cough when you're unconscious? I guess it's not impossible. But I don't know. I don't think she was unconscious yet. Probably shortly thereafter, but not yet. That's just my opinion, though.
Blood. I found this great picture that's away from the picture people are trying to focus on, the one where there's a lot of drops, which never convinced me. But when you look further away, you can see, did I say aspirated? I meant expirated. Everybody else keeps saying aspirated. I'm like, it's expirated blood. Expirated blood on that porch. So we know she was alive, but was she conscious? What went on in there from 212 to 228? And I think there was a physical assault of some nature. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about beating her to death. I'm talking about a few blows. She had to have been bleeding internally for her to expirate blood. So for these reasons, I think Porch Guy.
Also, Shadow and I's advice is, if you take prescription drugs, you should check with your doctor or look to see if there's any interactions with certain supplements. So again, because some prescription drugs should not be mixed with other things. So you want to look into that too.
Either A, overdid it, or B, just, got too rough with her. And I think she passed, and it's terrible. So now their whole scheme is blown. But
it's also interesting. Good, interesting idea on the Airbnbs. I looked this up. Holy cow! There's about 3,000 to 5,000 active Airbnbs within a 100-mile radius of Nancy's house.
I wonder how many Airbnbs are used for crimes. Let's look at that stat. But being interesting. But okay, so essentially the thought process goes: Porch Guy is the mope. He's a low level player in this to just go get her. Really doesn't have a dog in the fight other than he's getting a paycheck for doing this job. Overdoes it, kills her, so they never are able to exercise their demand for the money because she's dead, and it totally screws the whole thing up. And they don't want to get caught or have somebody turn on them and go, no, I'm a low.
I mean, considering they haven't gotten caught, and I don't think they're as dumb as a lot of people initially thought they were, it just doesn't add up to me for them to be this dumb to, if their goal was money, to be so dumb they get nothing, but then be so smart and smart enough to leave no trace behind. and leave no DNA behind. It's like, that doesn't add up to me. It just doesn't.
Level mope. It's these fuckers over here who are doing this, and I was working for. So they kill mope. Nancy's dead, and whoever's doing this is in a different country. So there's not a lot of things to trace. Is that kind of the direction?
That's the overall premise. And
Okay.
you know, I put out there several weeks ago about that maybe Porch Guy is dead, and then now it's kind of catching on. But I don't necessarily think that they would even need to kill Porch Guy, but I wonder if they paid Porch Guy. And I got to tell you this too, I'm more convinced than ever that maybe only Porch Guy was there that day. There could have been somebody in the car, but I mean, in and around that house, I really believe when you look at the data, right? We can't be influenced by anything else but the data. No one else is seen on any of the video or camera footage.
Oh,
No
yeah, I
one.
think it's just him.
I do too.
Yeah.
You do know? Yeah, I do. And that two-way rate.
Because he didn't react. I mean, none of his reactions were when he was startled by anything. First of all, he wasn't much startled. And when things gave him pause or anything, I mean, he was not looking around for affirmation or confirmation from anyone else and any of those things. That indicates to me there was no one around to have that with. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. I think he was solo. Not maybe solo acting, but solo there.
Yeah.
How does
a little bit, just because both two doors were open. And so I keep wondering, was there a person dressed like him? Were there two actors dressed similarly? I have not given up on that, or not given up. I have not released that as a possibility for sure.
Yep.
So you got a mope that in a scenario like this, are these people in a wrench attack where it's the mope that's going in and doing this? How tied into the handler are they? Is this kind of like a side hustle in the criminal world where it's like, hey, so and so over here has a job, you want to do it? Or are these trusted lieutenants of the higher?
I mean, this is a high risk maneuver, whatever you want to call it. So is some regular Tom, Dick, or Harry, as they would say in England, are they going to do this and say, oh, by the way, if you get caught doing this, you're only going to get life in prison. That's all. No big deal. Maybe even the death penalty if you're caught killing them. So that's not a small thing, right? That's like, if you're going to get some mope, as they're calling them, to do that, the reward for them must be pretty high for it to be just a mope. So I don't know. I don't know if I buy the mope narrative.
The one that's pulling the cords, or what? Because my question would be, where do you find mopes and look into that community and go, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at.
They're not tied in at all, Tony. Take the case that happened the day before Nancy was abducted. 2 kids, 17, I believe, and 18 from California. They drove over 600 miles. They drove only an hour or so north of Nancy Guthrie. And they went into a house of individuals that they believed had cryptocurrency, dressed alike in FedEx outfits. They were given 1,000 seed money from 8 and Red, who they were communicating with in over Signal. This is a classic wrench attack. These 2 kids are, sadistic. They tie the people up and start beating the hell out of them. But because they're unsophisticated idiots, by the way, who never even knew one another, they left. There was a child of theirs that was upstairs, and I don't know how young, but there was a minor upstairs, and he calls the police in hiding, and the police come and break it up before they A, crypto key, and B kill these 2. That is a classic wrench. Look at that statistically. And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier. This happened an hour and a half, maybe, away from her house the day before. I mean, to think that these attacks don't happen is just that's a wackadoodle thought. They happen, and it's tracked. Where do they find them, Tony? They find them on the dark web. If you've ever been on the dark web or had a case involving the dark web, You can hire murderers, you can hire kidnappers, you can get a hold of about anything. And the Bureau is heavily and always has been deeply embedded in the dark web in a undercover capacities and has many cases out of the dark web. And I think that that's where they find these people. They're willing, they raise their hand. They want to be Batman and Robin for a day, if you want to call it. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, they want to be, what are the other two? The Green Goblin and the Joker for a day and get a big payout because they're sadistic idiots.
See, I don't know about that, Jen Coffendoffer. The sadistic idiots narrative. I don't know. What's the evidence that they're idiots? Evidence sadistic, sure. But evidence idiots? I don't know. They're only going to reference the foliage grabbing and trying to block the camera. But what else? What else points to them being an idiot here? Just agreeing to do it? No, I guess, but I just don't buy it. I don't buy that part of it. I don't think, and again, you would have to be pretty bold, I would say, to have no emotional reason to do this or getting a pretty high payday to do it. Now, again, if it was a hit, yeah, there's money involved there in a hit, isn't there? Like whoever did it might have gotten paid something to do it. Sure, that could be. But even then, if you're doing that to Savannah Guthrie's mother, that's worth a pretty penny, I would say. Right? That's a high-risk operation.
Yep.
Have they ever, I mean, what about using the dark web against the dark web, about recruiting folks within the dark web those will be the folks that have the most knowledge, the most understanding, the most connections within because they actively work within it. Is there any flipping people in that world?
Oh, yeah.
For a case like this?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's undercovers and people that, within the Bureau that are very good. And again, this is a place too of a lot of child exploitation. Yeah. So
I've trained them, so inside the Bureau and other agencies as well. So I do a lot of communication training, a lot of interview and undercover training. So I've done a lot of training, just not in the Bureau, but other federal agencies for people operating on the dark web for just these things, not just these things, but anti-terrorism things. Because like Jen was saying, this is where transactions happen within a lot of anonymity, and that's why you find all the child predators online there too, because they think they can operate with anonymity. Unbeknownst, well, they know it that the law enforcement is trolling around in there, but there's a lot of nooks and crannies they try hiding in.
How are that? I don't even know how to access. I've heard the dark web forever. I have no idea how to access the dark web or what it looks like. I don't even know what to think of there. But obviously, I know it exists. How do people? How do they? Why do they use it when they know the FBI is lurking around in there? Is it just they can't help themselves and they're taking their chances, or are there other places that these folks linger that should be looked at?
Well, first of all, the use on the dark web is millions. I mean, it's not a small place.
Sure.
And it's easy to hide and get away with a lot. And, not all the phishing ends up.
I mean, honestly, if they're talking about this stuff, they're organizing it probably in person because I think they would know, we don't want to leave a digital trail, whether it's the dark web or cell phone communications or anything. So more in-person communication than anything is what my guess would be.
Catching the crook. But there's so many successful cases, Tony. But that's and I know from somebody like me who is Occam's razor that this sounds very wow, but it's really not. Yeah. It's really not. You have sophisticated ring that get mopes and they kidnap and or beat people. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest reasons that I'm talking about it so much as a possibility is because these emails and the Bitcoin, you have the best of the best for 112 days, I think we're on, and they not crack who got into 6 different times, 3 different servers in these emails. They can't crack it yet. And by the way, that's another possible in solving this.
And those email cracks from the alleged ransom notes, they might not even be related to the case. That could be a completely different thing. Someone that's just trying to be opportunistic and exploit the situation. But again, I think a lot of this case was blundered in the first 48. They could have gotten better DNA. They could have let the FBI do their thing in the beginning. They could have sent the Matt as our good friend Beth, who has not been here for a minute. Where has she been? Hopefully she's okay out there.
And then, of course, the Bitcoin. But the FBI does Bitcoin cases all the time.
Yeah.
Nothing here. And you know who's tickling the wire. The bad guys are the ones seemingly tickling the wire. We're not doing it.
So where it sits right now, Jen,
And I said Beth. What I meant to say was our surgical nurse, Bella. Hopefully Bella's okay. I haven't seen her for a minute.
where would you, if you're in charge here and you're putting resources on this case, where would you have him look right now?
Oh, I would have them all over. Again, these email, the server where that email was sent to these media sources. You have 3 different sources, which I think is good, where they would have come in through. I would be paying the best of the best outside of the Bureau to get this hammered out and figured out. Whoever invented the system for each of those media companies where you can send a note, I would be working night and day with them to see what they can resolve. Also, I would have the best of the best Bitcoin experts there are out there to figure out this wallet that was opened and where it was opened and how it was opened and who it traces back to. It has to trace back to somebody.
Yeah.
Even if it's way, I'd be all over that side of it. For this
The question is, does that just lead back to a scammer, or does it actually lead to the person who did this?
That's the right question that Tony just asked. I think it's very likely it just leads to a scammer, not the people behind the Nancy disappearance / murder.
You know?
Well, look at how the FBI reacted based on them believing it was related to the abductors. Look at everything they did. 5 different appeals to, and the orchestration and BAU and what Savannah Guthrie said herself. I believe those first 2 notes are real because she knows what's in them. And I believe they're real from everything. When I say real, not real for ransom. Look, they knew they were likely not going to get it. But if you follow these groups, they just keep pounding and pounding and pounding. The other thing is that I find interesting is everybody keeps saying the second 6 notes aren't related. It's so dumb to say that. We don't know. They can't figure out those notes either. So they have a lot in common. They can't find them who wrote them. You asked for Bitcoin as well, and they were equally obscure about the whole thing, and nobody else is doing that. At least notes to these media companies. So my whole thing is, how can you not say that they're all connected?
Yeah.
So Jen, if it's a sophisticated Bitcoin group that has done this before, at the higher level targeting, but you said you don't think, they ruined it because she wasn't able to give sign of life or proof of life. But again, that approach,
I mean, it's not impossible that the 6 notes are related, but I think there's probably more than one scammer as well. And whether the notes are related to the actual disappearance is a completely different story. Keep that in mind too.
Discount the approach being off from typical ransoms, but the Bitcoin is very common from what we're seeing from the numbers. But again, I'm trying to struggle with, so why did they even do it then if there wasn't a hope of it, if the first two were real, if they didn't expect to get the money? But then we'll reverse it. If we think it was targeted for torment against Savannah, why then, except if the guy's dead and he's acting alone, why then aren't we getting more leakage going on right now? So if we have Bitcoin on one, why that methodology if they didn't think they're going to get it? And if it was the other to torment Savannah, why aren't we getting more there? Any ideas?
Okay, so the first half of your question, look at the two kids, right, that we cited that we have a lot more information on, right? These two kids, and they're being tried as adults from what I understand. So they didn't get anything there either, but they're just willing to, these people are horrible. They're like the people that try to get ransom paid in all these missing cases. It just happens with every missing case, right? But this is to an all new level. And so hopefully that answers your question. This is just one of the many attacks they have done and going to do. And they know that most of them aren't going to work out. But man, the ones that do end up to be 183 million last year and 1.2 billion in 23 and already up to 100 billion or million, I'm sorry, in 2025. So
by the way, Shadow wants me to remind you all to like the video because likes are free. Spank that like button. Leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And as always, super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting channel memberships, great ways to support the channel. When you're a member, you get access to the members only live streams, which is a chill and a Q&A. This one will be Thursday this week as well. And thank you very much for all of the support that we've been getting so far. It all goes to go help me pay for Shadow's soy-free hootie snacks. He's very hormone conscious, as am I. And again, thank you for all the support. If you're lurking, make sure you say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat here.
You know, you keep casting the line.
Okay.
And you don't care who's left. And then you hope that if you keep beating them, that at some point, maybe they'll get desperate and you'll get something. I'm the one suggesting actually to tickle the wire, but I think it's worth it if this keeps going on unresolved.
Yeah. Lots of thoughts on where this is heading and where it's at, and obviously we'll keep watching. I saw one of our viewers said you have a crypto expert on Tuesday. Is that right?
I do. I've had him on before. He's amazing. He actually is in the thick of it. He doesn't talk.
Honestly, Shadow and I aren't really too interested in the Bitcoin side of this case because I don't really think it's that related, honestly. I think it's more of an exploiter, someone trying to take advantage of the situation. If they were to get to the bottom of it, I think they would just find a scammer. Now, granted, that being said, it doesn't mean they shouldn't try to get to the bottom of it because you never know. You never know who you might find at the end of it. Either way, it'd be good to bring to justice someone trying to exploit this situation. If you're very lucky, you would actually get someone involved in the disappearance. But I just don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they'll get caught that way. That's just Shadow and mine's opinion, though.
About it. He's not just he's a professional. Every day he works with Bitcoin. He is in charge of all this Bitcoin distribution and all creating. And I mean, it's unbelievable. I did a show with him already, but the problem was it was up here.
Okay.
I mean, it was,
yeah.
If you listen to that show, it's like, whoa, what? And I kept trying to decipher it and break it down. But we're doing just a question and answer Tuesday at 10.
Okay.
Viewers, so it's down at our level.
Yeah. Okay, great. Break the case.
Then maybe not mine because I don't understand any of it.
Yeah,
I small wee brain on this.
I know. I feel the same.
I believe in stacks of cash, man. That's my only thing. Stacks
Make
of cash.
It rain. Yeah, I mean, so check that out. Break the Case. Jennifer Coffindaffer on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Press subscribe and check it out so you can learn more. I'm going to watch and listen too because I need to. It's an area that I could certainly be more knowledgeable on in terms of understanding how it all functions. So go and check that out. Also, Robin's latest book, It's Not All About Me. It's available wherever books are sold. Go and check that out.
It's not all about me. Shadow says, Jared, you should read that book and then invite him on the show. What do you think, Chad? Should I do that? I think I should.
And your thoughts in the comment section on Substack and YouTube. We'd love for you to weigh in and give us your 2 cents. We'll continue the conversation there. Until next time, for Jennifer, for Robin, for Todd, I'm Tony Bruschi. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on?
Bought off Amazon. Knocked on a stranger's front door, and when that door opened, they forced their way inside, beat the homeowner until he had a concussion and a broken rib, duct taped both adults to chairs, and demanded access to $66 million in digital currency. They were carrying a 3D printed gun. They'd known each other about a month. And when investigators asked them why they did it, they said 2 people they'd never met. Screen names Red and 8 on an encrypted messaging app told them to. That's what a wrench attack looks like. And the question gaining serious traction right now in the Nancy Guthrie investigation and the case, at least out there in the social media ethers, and the question gaining serious traction right now, right here, is whether the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, mother of Savannah Guthrie, taken from her home in the Catalina foothills in the early morning hours, is part of the same machine. It's a question. We've talked about it a little bit on the show with Jennifer Coffindaffer. She's been talking about this quite a bit, probably more than most on social media. And I wanted to do a dive into it myself, just outside of those conversations. If you want to go back in our archive, you can go back and listen and watch, and there's a whole bunch of stuff about this. So press subscribe and go back and check that out if you want to dig deeper. The term comes from a web comic that was posted back in 2009, a cybersecurity joke. The idea was simple. Why spend months trying to crack someone's encryption when you can spend $5 on a wrench and beat the password out of them? It was funny because it was absurd, because most people would never actually do that. Except now they do, regularly. In 2025, blockchain security firm Certica documented 70.
So did you catch this? So there's people that, if you know someone has crypto, some of these sadistic psychopaths are going around and beating people with a wrench until they give up their seed password, is what it's called in crypto terms. So your seed phrase. And hey, they got to know first that you have one, for one. Secondly, a lot of people don't have that on them. So they're probably getting beaten unnecessarily. They wouldn't even be able to give it to them. So they're pretty scary, though.
2 verified wrench attacks worldwide, a 75% jump from the year before. In just the first 4 months of 2026, they've already logged 34 more. Losses have blown past $100 million, and the people behind these operations have figured out something that should terrify anyone with digital assets or a family member who has them. The most advanced encryption in the world is worthless if you can just grab somebody that they love, make a phone call, and show up with a wrench. Here's how it works in practice. Because in Scottsdale, in this case, it lays out almost like a textbook. Somewhere out there, typically overseas, typically in a country that won't cooperate with the FBI, sits a person who will never touch the front door. Call them the handler, if you will. They're young. They're digitally sophisticated. They know blockchain forensics, encrypted communications, and how to stay invisible online. And they have access to information about who holds cryptocurrency and where those people live. A lot of that information comes from data breaches. The 2025 Coinbase breach alone reportedly exposed personal details for tens of thousands of users. If you're running wrench attacks, a breach like that is a shopping list. But the handler doesn't get on a plane. The handler gets on Signal or Telegram and finds people expandable. In the Scottsdale case, it was 2 high school kids from San Luis Obispo County. They met about a month before the job. They told police that anonymous contacts Red and 8 sent them $1,000 for supplies, gave them the target address, and pointed them at a house where they believe 66 million in crypto was sitting. The kids bought FedEx uniforms, they bought zip ties and duct tape, they drove 600 miles across state
Well, the other lesson here is don't be bragging about your crypto balance or any balance of money for that matter.
lines to a neighborhood they'd never been to, targeting people they'd never met on the instructions of handlers they couldn't identify. One of them told police he'd been invited on a trip to tie people up for access to cryptocurrency. That's the recruitment layer. Disposable, deniable, and if they get caught, and those two did get caught, the handler is insulated behind encryption and international borders and just keeps operating. The dupes take the heat. That Scottsdale case has been logged as the first verified U.S. wrench attack of 2026. It happened on January 31st, 90 minutes south of Scottsdale in the Catalina foothills outside Tucson. Nancy Guthrie was seen alive for the last time on that same day. Same state, same day, an hour and a half apart. Now, before you're like, whoa, huzzah, I want to be careful here because proximity in time and geography is not evidence of connection. It's also not nothing. And the people making the case for a wrench attack connection to Nancy Guthrie aren't random voices on the internet. Coffin Daver has said publicly she's been considering this possibility since early March. She's a good friend.
I couldn't disagree more with that. This was not a wrench attack for Bitcoin from Nancy Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie's not a Bitcoin holder, for crying out loud.
Friend of mine. She's on the show all the time. I trust her opinion. I don't necessarily always agree.
Now, generally speaking, crypto is generally a younger person's game, but 84-year-old woman having Coinbase, I wouldn't expect that. Is it impossible? No, not impossible, but to me, very unlikely.
With it, but it's not coming out of nowhere. Retired Colorado detective Lisa Miller walked through the operational parallels in detail with Fox News Digital and Certa K, the same security firm tracking wrench attacks globally. But Nancy Guthrie's name, and put Nancy Guthrie's name on its official 2026 case list. Their argument has specific points that are worth hearing out. Again, not the same as these other two, but follow along with me and give me your thoughts in the comment section as we work our way through why some folks think this might be a wrench attack and why it could possibly be or not. First, the target selection. Wrench attack networks have moved increasingly toward what the security world calls proxy targeting, going after a family member instead of the person with the money. You don't need the crypto holder in the room. You need someone that crypto holder will pay anything to get back. Nancy Guthrie.
I mean, even unless Savannah Guthrie has mentioned Bitcoin in the past and has said, oh yes, I'm a big crypto advocate. Somehow I doubt it. I somehow doubt she has said that. I mean, granted, they have money, but why specifically crypto? I mean, they probably have all sorts of money in the stock market, etc. That's what I would think. But again, this whole line of thinking, considering, oh, it's for money, I just don't like this whole line of thinking because it just seems very unlikely to me. Considering, like, why not take something from the house if it's truly for money? Why not at least steal some jewelry or something? I don't know. Maybe because I think they'd get caught with the jewelry. I don't know. That doesn't make much sense.
His daughter is one of the most recognizable faces on American morning television, Savannah Guthrie. Her compensation is publicly reported. Her mother lived alone in a remote area with a predictable routine. If you're a A handler scrolling through potential leverage points against someone with visible wealth. Nancy Guthrie fits a possible profile if you're assuming that you could get crypto from someone close to Nancy. It's not the operational assumption that Nancy's going to, oh, let me get my phone out right here and transfer that right over to your wallet. No. It's more so you're connected to people who have what they want. Second, the operative on the porch. Miller described the person captured on Nancy's doorbell camera as a bit of a doofus, and we've called them 1,000 different things on this show. Cheap gear, reflective clothing, awkward firearm handling. But Miller's point was that the incompetence actually supports the theory rather than undermining it. In a wrench attack, the person at the door isn't supposed to be sophisticated. That's the whole design. The sophistication sits behind the encrypted app. The person you see on camera is the disposable layer recruited.
And Tina, 100% that is true. People that are scammers, they target the elderly all the time, right? They are well known to be targets of scam attempts. I mean, I have to watch people I know because people try to target them and they don't know any better. They want to call numbers they see on the screen, and God forbid they give away any information. But yeah, they try to target the elderly because they think, and unfortunately, correctly so, they think they're vulnerable, because often they are. So, but again, to me, that's different though. That's a different thing than someone that outright tries to kidnap someone. That's a lot. That's upping your risk and your potential consequences by a lot.
Pointed at an address and cut loose if anything goes wrong. Third, law enforcement confirmed early on that this was a kidnapping for ransom. Now, consider the source of the law enforcement as if that statement even means anything at all. That's what Nanos has talked about. And Nanos is a fucking idiot, in my opinion. Nancy Guthrie has said so. Savannah.
Shadow says, Tony, tell us how you really feel next time.
Rather, I should say, has said that that she believes that it might be a kidnapping for ransom as well. Now, because I believe Nanos is an idiot, doesn't necessarily mean that this idea is wrong. It's just not what you think it is. It's just not the traditional kidnapping.
Bravo there, Steve. We'll even give you some airtime for this. Ready? Shadow says, read his poem. There once was a sheriff who drove a Corvette. A midlife crisis is why, I bet, he should have done time instead of fight crime. He's the Guthrie investigation's biggest threat. It's almost like a Dr. Seuss poem, huh, Shadow? Well done.
For ransom sort of situation. A ransom-driven abduction of an elderly family member of a wealthy public figure. That's the wrench attack playbook. So the theory, it has some structure. It has credentialed voices. It has a security firm's official stamp. And it has the Scottsdale case sitting right there on the same calendar page and not all that far away physically. And yet, when you stop listening to how well the theory sounds and start measuring it against specific evidence in the case, it starts coming apart. And out at the edges, at the foundation. Now, look, I'm not saying it's impossible that it couldn't be a wrench attack, but I am saying let's take a look at the other side of the coin as well, as we always do here. We want to take a look at everything. That's necessarily saying it leaves us in a great place of like, see, we're on a good track, but no, it's more like, see, here's reality. And let's deal with reality on reality's terms. I think that's always a rather important thing to do. The most basic requirement of a wrench attack is a crypto connection. Every single documented case, everyone in CertaCase database, in Jameson Lops tracker, in every case study published by TRM Labs, traces back to someone who either holds cryptocurrency or is directly tied to someone who does. The targeting pipeline depends on data, a breach, an exchange record, a blockchain trail, a social media post about holdings. There has to be a reason the handler believed, or the dupe believed, crypto was accessible through that target. And in the Nancy Guthrie case, there's really no publicly identified reason. Zero. There's no evidence that Savannah Guthrie holds cryptocurrency. It'd be a big assumption if she did. Might she have some of her investments in there? Sure. It might, in a lot of things, probably. It's probably, some of it is probably in a greater portfolio. When you have that kind of wealth, it's also not something you may even be aware of, where your money is sitting or working for you. There's no data breach that connects the Guthrie family to a crypto targeting pipeline.
Right. And to me, that's why it makes no sense. That part just doesn't make sense to me.
Nobody who supports this theory, not Coffin Daffer, not Miller, not CertaK, has identified what would have put the Guthrie family on a wrench attack handler's radar in the first place. And you can't have a crypto-motivated crime without a crypto connection. Asking for Bitcoin in a ransom note doesn't make something a wrench attack any more than asking for unmarked bills makes something a bank robbery. Criminals use Bitcoin because it's harder to trace. That's opportunism, not organizational identity. Now look at the doorbell camera. The person on Nancy's porch discovered it on scene, it seems, and improvised, pulling weeds out of the yard and covering it up in real time. Little cilantro here. Think about what that means. If this is supposed to be a wrench attack, the entire point of the handler layout is reconnaissance. The handler identifies the target, researches the property, provides the address, and briefs the operative.
So Tina, the woman killed herself and her husband because of a financial crime? Like they just were embarrassed? Or who killed who? Hello there, Jen and L-Dog.
On what they're walking into. A visible doorbell camera is the most obvious thing a handler would flag. It's the first thing you'd mention. In the Scottsdale case, the operative showed up with a rehearsed cover story. FedEx uniforms, a box, a dolly, designed to get the door open voluntarily. That is preparation. That's someone who was briefed. The person at Nancy's store had no cover story, no disguise strategy, and didn't know the camera existed until he was standing in front of it. That's not a briefed operative. That's someone who showed up without a plan. The gear reinforces the same conclusion. In documented wrench attacks, handlers invest in operational cover because the whole operation depends on getting inside without raising an alarm before they're ready. The Scottsdale kids, like I said, they purchased the uniform props, a plausible pretext. The person at Nancy's door was wearing cheap reflective clothing with nothing resembling a thought-out approach. No uniform, no props, no strategy at the door. That's consistent with someone working alone or on minimal resources. It's not consistent with someone who is equipped and directed by a network that has shown, in other cases, the ability to coordinate across state lines and outfit operatives for the job. Maybe they're new to the game. Maybe they're trying it out for the first time, and this just went horribly. I don't know. Then there's CertaK classification, which has gotten a lot of play and deserves a harder look than it's received. CertaK put Nancy's case on its official wrench attack list and cited a Bitcoin ransom demand as the defining feature. But the ransom communications that surfaced publicly in this case, sent to media outlets, came from opportunists with no established connection to whoever actually took Nancy. We have no real certifiable proof that these demand letters were from the actual kidnappers. So that's a leap one has to make, and in their mind go, no, that's definitely from them for that to actually work. At least one of those demand letters came from a California man named Derek Kalala, who was a confirmed hoax, resulted in federal charges. If CertaK built its classification on ransom demands that investigators and other experts have already separated from the actual crime, then the classification isn't built on case evidence. It's built on noise that someone else generated after the fact, putting Nancy Guthrie's name on a wrench attack list because some ransom note that showed up that can't be verified where it came from doesn't make her case a wrench attack. It means the list needs better sourcing. So there's that. Pima County has pushed back formally. A department spokesperson told Fox News they've never received any reports referencing wrench attacks in their community and have not confirmed any crypto connection. Well, guess what, Pima County knows? He's going to be like, hey, I'm going to do a wrench attack this week and write Nanos a formal letter letting him know here's exactly what it is and here's what it's called. The flat out denial, no matter what you think about this, their investigation, tells you it's not the direction that people with access to the actual evidence have pursued much. What does that mean? You can take that any way too, quite honestly, because there are potential, I guess, strings you could pull here. I don't want to say it's a lane, but it's strings. And if you got nothing, you're going to pull on those strings and see what comes up. And underneath all of the expert commentary and the security reports and the coincidence of the Scottsdale timeline, the evidence you can actually observe still tells a simpler story. Someone showed up at an elderly woman's home. They discovered the camera on the spot and scrambled. They were wearing cheap gear with no operational thought behind it. They handled their firearm, if that's what it is, like somebody who doesn't carry one regularly. They left behind forensic material that investigators are now running through genetic genealogy. Every one of those facts points more clearly towards someone who came to burglarize a home they expected to be empty and found themselves in a situation they weren't ready for. Not towards a coordinated crypto extortion network with an overseas handler running the show through encrypted channels. I get why the theory has legs. I do. When a case drags on month after month, with no arrest, no named suspect, no answers, people look for a framework that explains the silence. And a wrench attack, with its overseas masterminds and encrypted cutouts and jurisdictional dead ends, explains the silence beautifully. It makes the absence of progress feel like a feature of the crime rather than a failure of the investigation. That's the comforting thought if you've been watching this case and wondering why nobody's in handcuffs yet. An amateur who got lucky and hasn't been caught is a harder thing to sit with. Doesn't have the same narrative architecture. Doesn't explain the void as neatly. But wanting an explanation and having evidence for one are two different things. The wrench attack theory checks some boxes. The proxy target logic makes sense on paper. The Scottsdale timing is hard to ignore. The doofus on the porch as a disposable operative argument has a certain internal logic to it. Those points deserve to be taken seriously, and I've tried to lay them out as fairly as I can here. But the boxes it misses are the ones that hold the theory together. No crypto connection to the family, no data trail to the target, no evidence of handler reconnaissance, no operational preparation consistent with a directed job, and a security firm's classification that appears to rest on ransom demands that have been debunked. You can't build a wrench attack case without the wrench. And right now, the crypto link that makes the entire model work simply isn't there. The theory deserves a serious look. And it got one. And where it stands right now with everything we see in this case, we can see in this case, is that a framework being stretched over this case called a wrench attack, in my opinion, doesn't quite fit. Now, could there be information that makes this fit into the square peg hole a little bit better? Maybe. Anything is possible. Things can change. Keep going with where the evidence leads us. But the simpler answer at this point in time is still harder to accept. And sometimes the most unsatisfying explanation is the one the evidence actually supports. In the case of Nancy Guthrie, that is still where the evidence points. Your thoughts in the comment section on Substack and YouTube. There is no right or wrong to this. There's just looking at reality, evaluating it, and going where it leads. That, in my opinion, is where that theory sits right now. Not completely. I mean, I'll entertain anything. I'll keep entertaining this, sure. Because there could be pieces that we don't know yet that actually put this into better perspective. But we're not aware of it yet. I'm hoping to God the investigators are. Your thoughts in the comment section on Substack and YouTube. We will continue our conversation there. Be sure to press subscribe if you've not done so already. Until then, I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case? And
All right. That's about the end of the night here, folks. So you can have a great nightmare as well. Shadow and I are going to rock and roll here as well. We'll see what goes on the rest of this week to see what other kind of cases and things pop up. Probably have some more Mackenzie, Sherla's action at a point as well. Thank you very much for all of the support that we got tonight, all the likes and the people that comment and subscribe. It's always appreciated. Maybe, Nanny Goat, maybe. So everyone, Shadow and I wish you all well. Until next time, everyone, you should all have a great night, chicken butt Julie Bug. Thank you all again, everybody. Good night, good fight, as they would say.